There's a lot of things I could talk about within like the culture and stuff, but I'm going to save that for my argumentative speech, and this is really just going to talk about the different kinds there are. Because a lot of people are like, oh my god, metal, it's all mindless screaming and someone stomping on a guitar. So I'm going to clarify a lot of those misconceptions. So the origins of metal, it was largely like post-1960s. One of the big things in the turn of the century was the invention of the single coil pickup. And basically a pickup is a set of magnets. There's 6 of them for one for each string. If you get like an 8-string guitar, you'll have 8 magnets. And they're basically called towers in a sense, where there's magnets stacked on top of each other to form a tower. And they're each about like 3/4 of an inch tall, and then they're coiled with like brass wire. And the way you coil them, how many times you coil them, it's very, very, very specific. Like Eddie Van Halen used to dip his pickups, like the coils, in honey to change the sound of them and make a heavier, deeper sound. So like it's kind of like magic. Like no one really knows why, but like the slightest tweak in the coiling sequence in a pickup changes the sound completely. And like to an untrained ear, it's kind of subtle, but to someone who's been playing for a while, like you can really tell the difference. So like with the turn of the century, there was the transition from acoustic instruments to electric. So to clarify, there's electric acoustic and then acoustic electric. So electric acoustic is like an electric guitar with acoustic parts, where there's like hollowed out parts in the guitar to create resonance. And then an acoustic electric is an acoustic guitar with a little filament in it that vibrates when you play it, and then translates that into an amplifier. So like there's a difference between the two. And so like turn of the century, acoustic electrics were kind of commonplace, and electric acoustics were just starting out. And like companies like Gretsch make them. They're pretty nice. Gibson does too. And Gibson was really like the first company that would create the metal guitar, where it was the humbucker. And the humbucker is a single coil pickup and another single coil pickup, and they're wrapped together. And it's called a humbucker because it bucks the hum. And the hum is this buzzing sound that single coils give. And when it bucks the hum, it gives you a cleaner sound. And so prior to the 1960s, you didn't have the technology to make a very like understandable distorted sound. It sounded way too garbled. But when the 1960s hit, Gibson came out with their humbucker, and it was picked up by Jimi Hendrix instantly. He was playing the flying V guitar, and it was equipped with them in the neck and bridge position, so he had a very strong, solid sound. And that was the start of the transition from super clean tone, where it sounds acoustic, to a distorted sound. And that's where metal started. And basically it was picked up by Jimmy Page in 1969. Led Zeppelin released Led Zeppelin 1. But Led Zeppelin 1 wasn't really a metal album, it was just a rock album. I'd say like the closest thing to an early metal album was Black Sabbath's Paranoid, which came out in 1970. So this is Led Zeppelin. That's legendary singer Robert Plant, and that's Jimmy Page, and that's his legendary 18-string guitar. He's got a double neck Gibson, and one neck is a standard 6-string, and then the other neck is a 12-string. And the 12-string is basically a duplication of each of the standard 6-strings, so it makes it sound like you're playing 2 guitars at once. So it's a very big, open, ominous sound. And it was his experimentation that really inspired metal, because people never went into dark and heavy. Classical musicians use something called a Phrygian scale, which is a very dark scale that uses lots of half steps, which is like dun dun dun. It's very dark, brooding, and moody. And it wasn't used by guitarists or like jazz musicians, which was basically the one form of music that guitar was probably featured in, until really like the late 70s. And there's bands like Motorhead that started using it, and Judas Priest. Motorhead has like an intense gallop to their music, and it's heavily distorted, so it pushes it forward. But they weren't until the late 70s. These guys, though, Black Sabbath, really established the power chord sound. Tony Iommi was a butcher, and he was also the guitarist for Black Sabbath. And he cut off the tips of these 2 fingers. And he was going to stop playing the guitar, and then he figured out a way to basically put a screw into his bone, and then he built a wax kind of coating around the screw and then put like this rubber seal over it. He made like artificial fingertips. But he couldn't play right because he didn't actually have real fingertips and he couldn't really feel where he was touching the strings. So he started playing in this kind of weird bar chord shape, and it's called a power chord. It's fifths. So you're playing the root and the fifth, and it creates a very loud, powerful sound. So he created the power chord, and the power chord is everything that metal has. The power chord established everything that is metal. So it was Tony Iommi who did all of that. So if anything, metal started in 1970 with the release of Paranoid. The song Iron Man is on there. Really cool song, really like heavy for the time. And Black Sabbath is kind of funny. Everyone thinks they're like super satanic or something, and like everyone at the time was like, oh my god, these guys are like cross-burning psychos. It's actually kind of funny. Like Ozzy Osbourne sings about a lot of like really positive stuff. Like it's not dark or anything. The only thing that's dark about is the name. But like he's like not a dark dude. He sings about a lot of positive stuff. If anything, he had personal issues, which makes him seem like a dark person. He had like a lot of heroin problems or whatever. But he actually sings about a lot of positive stuff. The whole like negative aspect of metal didn't come until like really like the late 80s with and early 90s with bands like Cannibal Corpse. So we're gonna jump to the 80s now with thrash metal, which was like the real like establishment of metal. Bands like Metallica, they redefined the whole like idea of what metal was, because like they rejected the idea of an image and rejected the very slick sound of records. And a lot of bands at the time were trying to produce like Journey or like Aerosmith or whatever. They were producing like really expensive, clean sounding albums. And Metallica went back to that very raw, early Black Sabbath sound where it was very like distorted, but then they took it to the next level where they started playing like violin. It's very, very technical, virtuosic music, and it was impressive. And that's really what established metal. From then on, like there was this precedent of wanting to outdo Metallica. You know, everyone wanted to play faster, everyone wanted to play more technical, everyone wanted to play heavier. And so there's Slayer, Megadeth, and Metallica. Those are some of the big 80s thrash metal bands. Here are just some pictures of Metallica. That's right, the Lightning, great album. Fade to Black is my favorite Metallica song. Really, really great melodic acoustic intro. So that's really cool. And then Master of Puppets is one of the big albums too. And then you get into the 90s, and the 90s is kind of weird because that's where metal really breaks down in a lot of like subcategories, and there's kind of alternative metal. Became big in the 90s with Tool and Neurosis and Kyuss. Tool is hard to explain. They're just really about spiritualism and like an awareness of the self. And Neurosis sings a lot about awareness of like a higher power and like God. So it's a lot about exploration of like religion. So like metal isn't all like burning crosses and screaming and death and hell or whatever. There's a lot of like alternate thought patterns, and like when you listen to Tool, it doesn't really sound like metal, but I mean like their early stuff is pretty heavy and it's pretty cool. And Neurosis is definitely a trip to listen to. They have an album where they have all insect sounds just buzzing in the background, crickets chirping and stuff, and it creates this big, loud, overwhelming sound. It's just intense. Kyuss is a stoner band from the 90s. They were from the desert, really good. Really good. Here's some Tool and Neurosis. That's some of the art for 10,000 Days. That's a trip to look at. Okay, so new metal, that was also the 90s. That was Korn and Slipknot, Cold Chamber, and similar acts like that. And that was a response to grunge music, known as the Seattle sound. Grunge was becoming really popular, and metal was kind of dying out, especially because hair metal had taken over in the late 80s. So it was kind of a back to the roots ideology. And this is when metal started to become really dark. Like, this is all America, though. There's two branches of metal. There's European and then American. And they developed completely differently and in isolation really from each other. So this is when American metal started becoming dark. European metal was always dark to begin with. A lot of European metal is from Sweden, and they have like the highest suicide rate because of the weather and stuff. So their music is always darker. Then you get into Southern metal, and God, Mastodon, Alabama Thunder Pussy. That's actually a band. They're great though. They're cool. They have a bluesy sound. That's signed by Darrell. He's dead. Good guitarist. Oh God. And then I want to clarify some stuff about satanic metal. It's really about a backlash. The church ostracized metal music. The church ostracized blues. The church ostracized jazz music and declared it all satanic because it was so technical. So it's not like metal was the first thing to be ostracized. And metalheads just kind of ran with it. So you get bands like Behemoth, where like they're openly like about opposing religion, but they aren't quite satanic. And then you get bands like Mayhem, where like the bassist Mark Merkins basically murdered his guitarist and burned down like 50 churches. Was actually like a really evil dude, and went to jail for all that. And then you get bands like Mortoroth and Mortal. These guys are pretty funny. So it was more like a response to accusations of being inspired by the devil, and so they just kind of took it to the extreme. And then there's technical metal, which is the latest form of metal. It started in the 80s, but it's been reinvented with the popularization of the 8-string guitar. So if you think 6 strings are hard enough to play on, you try 8. It's ridiculous. The last 2 strings are like bass strings. They're extremely thick and hard to play. So these guys are exceptionally good. And this is Kinetic. They're a great technical metal band. Definitely look them up on Facebook. These guys are from San Jose. And so if you want to see like local stuff, that's really good. And then Meshuggah, they're from Sweden. And what's not metal? This is really quick. This is Randy Blythe. He's a really funny dude because he basically talked about, he had like a public announcement about what he thought metal was and what it wasn't. And he basically spoke out against what he called the emo mentality, which is basically like a selfish mentality. A lot of metalheads trying to contribute and stay loyal to the to the genre. And I don't know if you guys ever saw the South Park episode though, but like,
oh my god,
it's pretty funny where they burn Hot Topic down. And the whole it's a parody, but they're talking about the mentality of just like, oh, no one understands me, and this whole angst-filled mentality of someone in high school where they're going through a phase where they feel like they don't know who they are and they're trying to discover themselves. And metal isn't part of that. Metal is nothing at all like that, and this is a phase. A lot of people feel like it doesn't contribute to metal because it's a phase and they're just going to leave. And so it's not like a continual commitment to the community. It's just like, I'm here and then I'm going to leave. So a lot of people don't like emo people in the metal community. They feel like they're just posers. So, I don't know, I thought this was funny. Emo kids, you grew up in suburbia, no one feels sorry for you, get a haircut. I gotta just say, that's literally my experience with those kinds of people. They're not bad, they're just misguided. I don't know, they're just irritating. Yeah, they're not metal, bro. Get a haircut.